SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
I am going to talk to you today about the socio-cultural dimensions of work and behavior. Basically, it means that the way people behave off the job, OFF, they behave on the job. And you see examples of this every day. Institutions which run placement activity during class session hours are expressing their value to the world in unstated terms. And obviously, I do not wish to name institutions, but if placement is more important than class, then classes should not be held at all. Why does this happen? It happens because of two factors. One, misplaced priority, and two, confidence that you can get away with it. The way to stop it is to ensure that people do not get away with it. There is no way you can give people right priorities, because remember, everyone has a right to his own priority. Indeed, as many people realize, the only inalienable right is the right to suicide. It is a fundamental right, in a manner of speaking. How do you prevent somebody from committing suicide? So, there is no way you can give people right priorities. People will have priorities which their cultural background has taught them to have. And if all along the mindset is, if you are somebody, you can get away with what you do because you are somebody, then you carry that culture onto the job. And everyone makes a noise when somebody else is doing it. And most people do not hesitate to take an advantage when they are capable of taking an advantage. Now, if you want to understand one of the central causes of organizational ineffectiveness, it is this. Why is it that item for item, when you compare how we do something at this place and somebody else does something at another place, a lot of times others come out better? Goes back to the two core words of life: discipline and capability. You can steal a march violating both. It does not last. Therefore, the conditioning of people off the job, OFF, affects the kind of behavior and work of people on the job. Which is why it is important to recognize that no one should be taken into an organization unless he has run through an orientation program which makes him fit to be what John White calls an organization man. self-styled dadas, people who believe who can bend the rules, people who can drive on the right side of the road when they are supposed to drive on the left side of the road, people who can jump red lights and think nothing of it, people who can violate anything with impunity. Well, that's a problem of civil society which we can't be concerned with here. We are looking at these topics in the context of organization management. And an organization is created to fulfill a given set of objectives, and all actions within that organization are meant to fulfill that objective, and anything which is outside that objective may be indulged in, but not at the cost of the objective itself. Am I clear on this? Therefore, when you are looking at socio-cultural dimensions of work and behavior, it is important to recognize that you are not doing yourself a service. The organization is not doing a service to itself unless it has helped people to unlearn what they have grown up with it, if it is not consistent with the purposes of the objectives of the organization. Like everything else in organization management, it calls for an intervention. Remember the statement, it is not good enough to understand how the world works. It is important to do something about it. I am going to look at the socio-cultural dimensions, motivation and leadership, motivation theories and their implications, and workplace outcome so far as motivation theories are concerned. I am not using the word motivation here in the sense in which it is used in psychology. The same topic can be treated in different disciplines in a different manner. Take for example leadership. It will be treated in one way in philosophy, in another way in sociology, a third way in anthropology, a fourth way in management, a fifth way in political science. What is the difference in which leadership will be treated in management and leadership will be treated in political science? When you talk of leadership in management, it is the kind of focused effort at pooling in the energies towards organizational goals. That is leadership in management. And getting focused energies of every member of the organization towards the goals of the organization is the only way leadership can be discussed. But if you are talking of leadership in political science, you raise issues like general will. What does the public want? Do you lead the opinion or do you follow the opinion? And what do you do to ensure that most of the people who want you? God bless an organization which functions that way. In management, leadership can only be for the purposes as just defined, and cannot be at the cost of the viability of the organization, the objectives of the organization, and if I might care to add, the effectiveness of the organization, which in most cases is the profitability of the organization. You will notice the carefully worded statement which I am making, effectiveness of the organization, which in most cases is the profitability of the organization, which means by implication all organizations do not have to exist by definition for profits. You can have a loss-making organization provided it is for sufficiently big social cause, but such cases are minority in number, are lesser in number. Most of the organizations will not be viable unless they were making profits. Therefore, the touchstone of everything, recruitment, placement, manpower allocation, performance appraisal, employee benefits, and the whole works has to be understood. Is it consistent with the profits of the organization? If you do not make profits, then you cannot invest in the renewal of the organization. Where do you get the money to update the machinery? Where do you get the money to add and augment the skills, which need continuous inputs? Where do you get the money to keep the system going? Similarly, the word motivation in psychology has one connotation. Motivation in management is essentially getting people to do their job with enthusiasm. And a lot of efforts at motivation of the organization man fail because basically it is useless material which you have recruited. He was never meant to be there. And of course, in India, talking of socio-cultural dimensions, it is no news to say that people choose careers because their mothers wanted it, because their dads wanted it, because their mamas wanted it, because their taus wanted it, because chittapas wanted it, and you can draw from any language which you want, it comes to the same. I have never doubted India's unity. It cannot be fragmented by language and religion. We essentially behave the same way socio-culturally. There is a broad band in which we operate. Even religion is evoked, fully conscious of the fact that there is very little gender differential between the status of a woman in one religion and in another religion. The intensity may vary, and I do not want to start naming religions. It does not need research to show that in India, femininity, women are the repositories of family pride. It is no discovery to be told that in the subcontinent, not just India, marriages are hypergamous. What is hypergamous? You are supposed to betroth your daughter, your sister, the girl of your family into a higher family. Now, what is the logic? There is no logic. It is just a socio-cultural pattern. Why can't the boy be married in a higher family? Nobody would ask that question. Why is it done that way? It is done that way. That is all there is to it. Why must the girl change her name? The boy will never change his name. Why should the children of the marriage belong to the boy's family, not to the girl's family? What is the logic? Very simple. That is the way it is done. And that is the socio-cultural pattern. Now, if that is the socio-cultural pattern outside the institution, when you enter the institution, you can't suddenly say that your sister was your property in the family, and you could determine whom she would meet and where she would go, and if she did not behave herself, oh, what a visitation she will have. But the moment you enter the organization, your sister and you are at the same level, she has the same rights, she must be promoted. It does not work that way, because your whole conditioning is different, which is the biggest problem in making organizations work effectively. How do you transform people from one scene to another scene to be dramatically different? When we look at these issues, we understand the problems which emerge at work. We understand the problems which come at behavior at work. Therefore, motivation has to do to move people to commit themselves to the organizational goals and give their best. It does not really matter whether he is feeling happy or unhappy. There are a lot of theories to deal with this, and we will be covering several of them. One of them is, and I want you to hear this very clearly, why must I be friends to people at work? I have gone to work to work. So long as I do my work, and remember the discussion on inputs, throughputs, outputs, so long as I do my task at the receivables and I give out the deliverables, how does it matter whether I smile at the person next to me or I scowl at him? All I have to ensure is I am not disruptive. And indeed, friendship can be very disruptive, because you indulge in all types of conversation which is on organizational time. Now, like every other theory, I am not pushing any theory. You will decide for yourself, and that is the beauty of the management discipline. For whatever you do, you are responsible, and it is your choice. So, you do not have to go around saying, it is my life, I will choose, I know what I want, I am an adult. Management begins with that assumption. You should know what you want. And of course, it is your life. You will pay for what you do. And believe me, that is not a choice. That is the law of nature. You will bear the brunt and the consequences of all your choices. Management begins there. Therefore, management is supposed to facilitate robust decision making. And management is supposed to encourage constructive, positive choices. And so long as you are drawing an organizational salary, you are supposed to work in the interest of the organization. Of course, enlightened organizations, the better organizations, the effective organizations try to bring a congruence between individual objectives and organizational objectives, where it is necessary that you recruit the right sort of a person. If the fellow is interested in playing a piano, and that is the objective of his life and nothing wrong with it, why do you want to recruit him as a production manager? Therefore, assessment of temperament and aptitude to the extent that it can be done is a very important consideration in recruitment. And organizations which do not do it are condemned to pay the price, which is the reason why in any organization, at least theoretically, the process of selection and the process of confirmation has a time period. You are confirmed after 6 months, you are confirmed after a year, you are confirmed after 2 years. Because you are supposed to be observed at work and see whether you fit in. The trouble with a lot of organizations is that they do not recruit professionals, they recruit holy cows. The moment you start taking disciplinary action about someone, poor fellow, मर जाएगा, the fellow will die, he never dies. It is like the angry wife who keeps threatening extreme action, or the angry husband who keeps threatening angry action, they never do it. If you are really going to do what you threaten to do, you would never say it. The lightning would strike. But it's a very gusty part of exchange to threaten divorce to each other, to threaten suicide to each other, to threaten walking out of the house to each other. It somehow makes you feel good. I am sorry to say that, this is motivation. It makes you feel good. See what I can do. Baba, you have done nothing, you will do nothing, you are just talking about it. The same thing carries on to the work situation. Unfortunately, there are no studies available on it, but I wish somebody would study the percentage of terminations which take place during the probation period. There is some company data available, but somebody needs to put together the aggregate of this company data to understand the nationwide trend. It is again the permeation of the socio-cultural variables outside the organizations, inside the organizations, because as I said, if you are recruiting holy cows, then what is the holy cow syndrome? You can't milch them because they have gone dry. You can't kill them because it is a sin. You can't keep them because you don't have the capacity. So what do? You turn them out onto the streets to cause a traffic jam. Which is my response to the holy cow syndrome is, in each organization, set up a Goshala, where you remit such characters. And since you don't have the capacity to dismiss them, because you are so full of human milk of sympathy, feed them, but prevent them from disrupting others' work. What am I trying to say? A very simple proposition. Any effective organization looks only at the motivational effort of the individual towards organizational goals. Remember, I started by trying to share with you what are the motivational dimensions we are looking at. They teach operations research in industrial engineering. They teach operations research in management. They teach operations research everywhere. In fact, operations research is not even a specialization. Operations research is a set of methodologies. And operation research methodologies can be applied in any area. You can apply operations research in human resources management. There are different models of operations research which are used in manpower planning. And since I am not talking of human resources management here, I do not want to spend time talking about it. What you have got to understand is what aspect of motivation, what correlation does it have with organizational effectiveness, and what has management to do with it. And create a system, create a process which causes that kind of motivation. And at the end of the day, let me be absolutely clear, you are motivated by the internal environment of the organization. If you find people getting away with murder, as it were, you will be lax. And if you notice that lightning strikes at anyone who gets out of step, you will be doubly as careful. There is a very simple behavioral theory. Positive results serve a reinforcing pattern. Even the child knows, if I start crying, I will get milk. So every time he needs milk, he cries. He is not crying, he is making a noise. And the grown-ups fancy themselves that they are great psychologists. Some of the biggest psychologists among the Homo sapiens are the children. Not even the children, the kids. They know exactly when to smile to get a smile, and when to snarl to get people stopping to do what they want them to stop doing, when to make a hue and cry to get attention, and indeed how to ask for food. They don't sit there and say, get me mulgatwani. They simply make sure you disrupt and stop anything that you are doing and come and feed them. Unfortunately, people lose that capacity to be psychologically effective as they grow up. You talk to a 4-year-old child just about beginning to talk, and he will tell you exactly what he does to get what result. You know, my mother, you say 2 times, she will do it. And there have been a series of performances just on this. How to grow hysterical, to get your father to drop everything and say, okay, 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 I'll do it. Unfortunately, as you grow up, you lose that kind of a natural, instinctive, psychological route to success. Much in the same manner, and this is a serious theory which I think needs to be put on board. I don't know how many people are aware that an infant a few days old has serious enough automotor capacities, so that if you were to throw that child in a pool of water, it won't sink. Of course, it won't do breaststroke and backstroke and what have you, but it would wobble there enough to keep afloat. Those automotor instincts go away after some weeks, and then you have to start to learn swimming. Nothing which I have discovered. What I am trying to tell you is, nature has imbued tremendous instinctive tools to all live beings. Birds don't go to school, and animals never graduated to IIT. But the kind of intelligence which they get is something which is a part of nature. With Homo sapiens, the learning overlay is so large that you have to begin going back to learning even how to be good. No species ever eats its own. Cannibalism is known to exist amongst Homo sapiens. What am I trying to say? Issues of motivation, issues of commitment to work, issues of simple honesty, come natural to a lot of species. In case of the Homo sapiens, it has to be taught against much resistance. When people turn 22, 23, 25, 27, they want to discuss, sir, why should I be honest? Serious managerial issue. Does honesty pay? Have you ever heard a dog ask this question? And believe me, for whatever it is worth, one man's view, that's mine, is very simple. There is no other way but to be honest, at least in management. If there is no honesty, there is no branding. I am talking management, I am not taking you to heaven. I am not a clergyman, that is not my purpose here. If there is no honesty, there is no quality. If there is no integrity, there is no reliability. And somebody will have to teach me management all afresh to tell me how you sell without quality and reliability. Yet, the bright 24-year-old absorbing the environment all around wants to know, sir, does honesty pay? I am at a loss to answer that question. Yet I can understand why that question is coming, because I can see no other way of effective management other than simple honesty. You may damn me as old fashioned, and I will plead guilty to that. But the fact of the matter is, nothing enduring, and I will repeat that for the sake of emphasis, nothing enduring was ever done without simple, straightforward honesty. You can be successful for a limited period of time. You can achieve a few things. You will ultimately collapse under your own weight. This is where the legacy factor comes in. Flip through the pages of corporate history and business history, you will find it replete with what happened when honesty was not practiced at each level. Please note my emphasis. I am not talking of honesty of just manufacturing and integrity in salesmanship and total reliability of strategy. Oh no, I am talking of simple, essential, basic honesty at each level. If you are not honest, safety is jeopardized. If you certify without testing, you will be releasing the death warrant of your own organization. Therefore, motivation covers a whole range of human response to work situations. And there is where you have to be careful that you don't carry the culture of the organization onto the organization if it is not something which serves organizational purpose. The socio-cultural dimensions, therefore, as you can deduce, have an internal dimension and have an external dimension. People confuse the two. If your time is paid for, please help me to explain why you should be doing anything else during that time. And in the better organizations, they have means of detecting it, ways of responding to it. In weaker organization, corruption is not a transfer of some money from the right side to the left side. Corruption is all pervasive. An effective organization knows how to meet corruption, because corruption is corrosion. Financial corruption is just a part of the larger corruption. There can be administrative corruption. And everything can be done in a corrupt manner. It is oversimplifying to say exchange of money is corruption and that is the only corruption. Organizational management focuses on issues of how to deal with aberrations which are undertaken internally and undertaken externally. Remember again, behavior is not an undifferentiated phenomena. I am using a double negative consciously. Each one, and if you have heard the name of Picasso, that propounder of modern art who defined modern art for a long period of time, came out with the theory of cubism. And he talked of 3 dimensions of human personality. And since it does not serve my purpose to get into an elaboration of what modern art is, though I believe that to be a good organization man, you must be educated enough to have an appreciation of art, music, literature. And if you think sitting there with your calculator is going to make you a good manager, which of course is essential to be a good manager, well then experiment with your life. After all, it's your life. A good manager requires a holistic personality. Management is not just a field discipline, it is an integrative discipline. You can't be a good finance manager without having some appreciation of manufacturing. You can't be a good manufacturing manager without some understanding of marketing. You can't be a good marketing manager without understanding the human resources dimensions, if nothing else, your sales force. Forget your customer. So, people may parade around saying, after all, I am a student of accounts. Well, then my answer is, go and do a techie's job. Don't be a manager. And nothing wrong with doing a techie's job. The world needs good techies. I need somebody's help when I sit on the keyboard and I want to draw a half circle of squares. I would be requiring an appreciation of the techie skills which I may not have. So, what is wrong with being a techie? And why should everyone be a manager? If a manager cannot be a techie, then why should a techie be a manager? Therefore, management is essentially an integrative discipline. And all managers are supposed to have a sound understanding of the interfaces, interface between one area and another, which is a takeoff of the larger proposition which I want to sell to you. Behavior of individuals as an individual, behavior of an individual in a group, behavior of an individual in privacy are all separate things. The individual behaves differently when he is sure nobody is watching him, as compared to when he recognizes the possibility that somebody is watching him, as against when you are in a group situation. When you are in a group situation, all your behavior is vetted against a very simple paradigm. How does it leave me with this group? But there is no such worry if you are working in an individual capacity. Therefore, a very simple proposition, behavior is a differentiated phenomena. And the same person can behave differently in different situations. Therefore, what is it that shapes our attitudes? Environment. And let us take a clockwise understanding of some of the select factors. This is by no means an exhaustive diagram. Socialization with successful people. If you consider somebody successful, you are inclined to imitate him. Sometimes it works, most of the times it does not work. Because no recipe is individual, barring general norms. Yes, I would say a general norm is you can't be successful without honesty in an enduring manner. Yes, you can be successful temporarily. That has got nothing to do with copying somebody or not copying somebody, but style, mannerism, expression, emphasis, use of anger, not use of anger, smiling, persuading, not persuading. Develop a behavior consistent with your own temperament. Develop a behavior which is consistent with your own personality. Everything does not suit everyone else. Yet, socializing with successful people does create values and beliefs. You look at models, you want to be like them. Positive work experiences create values and beliefs. What I was telling you earlier on, behavior which is rewarded tends to repeat itself. What you see influences you. And of course, the family has a large influence. The way your mother conducts herself, the way your father conducts himself. What do they say? Because the conditioning of the mind takes place at an impressionable level by what you see around in your family. Mother wins award at work. You would like to know, what did she do? If she won an award for the highest percentage of attendance at work, that value gets ingrained in you. Going to work is a good thing. You don't have to be taught that. Similarly, parents involve child in work projects. The children obey unquestioningly. Counter-dependence begins only with the first attempts at trying to be logical. Life passes through 4 stages. The first phase is of dependence. You can't feed yourself, you can't bathe yourself, you can't change your own clothes. For everything you are dependent. And that continues for several years. Even a 5-year-old needs assistance. Then as the child grows up, the first reaction is of counter dependence. I can do it. Mommy, don't help me to put on my pants, I can wear it. I am not a kid. Don't put my shirt in my shorts, I can do it myself. I can button up my shirts. At each stage you are trying to prove you can do it yourself. And as you graduate into teenage, you begin by saying the things which teenagers do. And they believe in it. Teenage behavior is so stereotyped across the world that it needn't even be discussed, which is full of statements which emphasize the counter dependency. I don't need you. I can do it on my own. Do it on your own, no problem. The trouble is, even economically, you are not solvent. Doesn't matter. I will manage. I will work as a receptionist. Tell me, honey, who would hire you at the age of 13 as a receptionist? You will find out. My answer always is, Bitiya Rani, go out and find out. Or Beti ji, go out and find out. These doors will be open when you come back at night at 12 o'clock and nobody even offered you food. But that is the phase of counter dependence. It should be handled in a tolerant manner. Then as you grow up, you become independent. So you have the 21-year-old, 23-year-old, 25-year-old parading. I am a self-made man. I don't need anybody's help. I can do it on my own. I don't even need my parents. And of course, the more brilliant goes around saying, what did anyone do to help me? No, nobody helped you in anything. You even gave birth to yourself. You didn't need anybody's help. And after you have seen it all, you start believing the simple law of life, mutual dependency. You need others and others need you. So, it is dependence, counter dependence, interdependence and mutually dependent. All this comes out of parents involved with child in work and the subsequent stages thereafter. Good potential for the current job. I want to study finance with information technology, blah, blah, blah. And that fashion passes and everyone wants to study electronics with marketing. So, the fashion passes and all these fashions come and go. Ultimately, you are trying to assess what is the potential in the current job. Baba, the potential in the current job may not be around by the time you graduate and you get a job, because it changes every 6 months. In February 2008, they did not know that there will be a September 2008. And when I said in a board meeting in December 2008 that this slump will not last for more than 10 months, if even that, another colleague on the board, a very drummed up economist with all the right credentials from halls of fame, turned around to me and in a very sarcastic manner said, "Oh, you have some special information, do you?" So, of course, I had to put on an accent and return the compliment and say, "Yes, as a matter of fact, I do, but the trouble is I can't share it with you because it is privileged information." And there the conversation ended. And believe me, within 5 months of that conversation, the decline of the meltdown had begun. So, that is the span of employment fashions. God bless people who base their careers on such interpretation of career potential. More to the point, the proposition which I am selling to your attention is your understanding of the good potential of the current job influences your values and beliefs. The professional takes a longer view than the current potential, but we are talking of how values and beliefs develop. Then there are all types of other examples. If you have seen that your parents never miss work, you see value in not missing work. And if you are blessed with parents who said, "Ki farak panda ji," how does it matter? Send an application. Or better still, what happens in so many households? Somebody calls, the 10-year-old is asked to take the call and told, "Tell him I am not at home." So, you begin by believing that saying "I am not at home" when you are at home is a routine phenomena. Otherwise, why would my dad do it? And there are good examples and there are bad examples. There are positive examples and not so positive examples. But this is how values and beliefs emerge. And from values and beliefs, attitudes of strong and positive work attitude emerge, and this is what you carry on to your job as an employee. Remember, we are talking of socio-cultural dimensions of work and behavior. So, if you are trying to motivate somebody, you have to understand what is his motivation, what works for him. Obviously, attitudes shape behavior. Values held as important, beliefs about an object or a referent, attitudes about an object or a referent, intentions to behave, behavior, and it goes back to beliefs. This is a schematic projection of linkages between values and beliefs. After having explained what I have explained, I do not think it should take too much effort on your part to understand this simple flow diagram, which is merely presented to you to show the schema and the linkages and the flows. Organization structures and processes give an incomplete description of how an organization can be managed and developed, because structures and processes are merely the grammar. It is a statement of how it is meant to be. Ultimately, the character of the organization takes on the imprint of the people who work in that organization. Any institution gets to be what it is by virtue of how the people in the organization conduct themselves on issues which touch an organization. It is looking at, say, the diagram of a railway station, the artist's conception of what it should be, and then 2 years after the use, you look at the same railway station and look at how it looks. The walls are the same, the fixtures are the same, but it can be well maintained, it can be badly maintained, it can be crumbling, it could have become dysfunctional. So, ultimately, structures and processes are what I would like to put as only grammar of an organization. Life is brought to an organization by the people who populate the organization, and it is the behavior of the people which will give character to the organization. And anyone who misses this point about socio-cultural variables cannot run an organization successfully. Therefore, it leads to a very simple proposition: human beings are the most important constituents of an organization, because they are the ones who give it character. To understand why do people behave as they behave and how their behavior can be modified is the gist of management. To understand how society and environment influence the behavior of a person is critical to the making of a good manager, which is what leads to the expression, where does this guy come from? And you can make out where that guy comes from by the way he behaves, by the language he uses, by the grooming he shows, by the kind of sensitivity he carries, by the kind of judgment he displays. And let me tell you this, if this is your only takeaway from this session, each thinking person has to grow to adjust to the values which his work organization needs, because nobody was born in that. And of the many things which have to be done to understand adjustment to the organization, it is a question of management of your emotions. It is management of your expectations. It is management of your resources. And it is a complicated process up to a point where it is impossible to work effectively around a situation without appreciating what is it that I can impact and what is it that I can't impact. It seems to me that this realization cannot be taught. So, goes back to an important ingredient of organizational effectiveness, your cultivation of your own judgment. And then comes the point to understand how do external factors such as leadership and motivation help improve a person's efficiency. Because those who do not understand this and come from, I do not know whatever that expression means, but everyone seems the hard disciplines. There are hard disciplines and there are soft disciplines. I have never understood what is a soft discipline. I have tried to touch it often, but it belies touch, smell, taste, physical properties of matter. Then there are hard disciplines. And there is a great virtuosity about hard disciplines, because it helps you to calculate, and anything which can be calculated is absolutely wonderful. I am not here to choose for you. You will decide on what kind of management you practice. But let me tell you one thing, whatever is the management you will practice, you will not be able to function in an organization unless you have some understanding of what is leadership and what is motivation. Because at the end of the day, after you have learned how the left side balances with the right side, and how the entries are made, and how the inventories are kept, and what is issued out and what is not issued out, you should realize that there is really a semantic battle going on. The storekeeper has become the materials manager, but he is doing essentially the same task. The accounts clerk has now becomes the accounts manager. He is doing exactly the same task. And in a lot of hostels, caretaker have transformed themselves into house managers. Everyone likes that little suffix of a manager. So, I am a teacher manager. Sounds much better than saying I am a masterji. Who wants to respect a masterji? Even hearing it is terrible. But if I were to be a teacher manager, wow, I have graduated to fame. I am dramatizing this with a purpose. In a status bound society, words, designations like manager, director and what have you make a great impact. I do not have to name the scientific organizations, but very high flown scientific organizations have had unrest because of designations like scientists A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, scientist G, what is it? You are never going to be promoted? But I have been promoted. How? You were only scientist D 5 years ago. No, but now I am scientist G. What are you trying to tell me? New alphabets. But if you graduated from being assistant director to deputy director to joint director to director, the public perception is great career progression is taking place. And if you think this is a battle which illiterates fight, you are wrong. Everyone likes a fancy designations. Once I did an analysis and I discovered that in South Asia, we have 32 different varieties of directors, which includes government, the multinationals and the private sector. The moment you are a director, you have arrived. And if you are only a scientist, G, something wrong with you. What is G? My purpose of trying to explain to you that yes, come from the hardest of all disciplines, even calculate through impact analysis, how your chrysanthemums worked in the bouquet you presented to the one you love. Do all that, but at the end of the day, you would be left with issues of motivation. What do you do there? And I tell you what the smart ones do there. They try scaling and graphing even in motivation. Only thing is that scaling and graphing does not leave you any the wiser of what to do with the next person you meet in a subway who does not like you pushing for the seat which he is occupying. Then you do not sit there with a calculator and draw an attitude graph to analyze now how should I deal with him, by which time he has already knocked you out. Nothing wrong with hard disciplines, but permit me to share with you a simple thought: nothing wrong with soft disciplines either. In fact, good management requires both of them to work together. And since the topic which I want to share with you just now is socio-cultural patterns in work and behavior, I have to emphasize the need to understand these for effective management. There are obviously roles of motivation and leadership. Motivation and leadership have different dimensions, which I will be taking up with you shortly.